Alright. Peggy, if anybody needs it, we're just in here. Alright. Well, good morning. It is Monday, April 15th, and we are at a Finance Committee meeting. Our agenda is, we have two things. We'd like to go through the 23-24 revenues. We just ended our third quarter for expenditures for this fiscal year. And then wanted to preliminary give an update to the 24-25 budget, which will be presented to the board in May as a first read, and then final read will be in June, because we will be asking to approve a preliminary budget so we can begin spending our fiscal year on June 1st, but we'll go through all that in a little bit too as well. So let's start with revenues for the 23-24 school year. Revenues are looking as predicted. Again, last Friday I did go through this pretty extensively with, actually Thursday, with CISA 5, so to make sure we were right on track. We did an analysis. We compared to where we've been in years past, and right now our revenues we anticipate up about $75,000, which is good. So, so as expected for revenues, as we know, we get ebbs and flows with big deposits from taxes and stuff like that too as well. I did, from a revenue and expenditure standpoint, I did do a low point just to make sure, because when we take a look at expenditures versus revenues, our low point for this past fiscal year has been right around $1.2 million. So plenty, no worries there as it relates to making sure we meet all of our obligations, so no need to short-term borrow or anything else like that too. So revenues are coming in as expected. That's the easy one, right? Expenditures, obviously, we got a lot more details for expenditures, but the good news is again, expenditures are looking very, very good as we take a look at, again, the big hitters are employee benefits and salaries. And this current time for salaries, when we take a look at it, right now we're right around that 61%, whereas a year ago and the year prior, we were right around that 63-64%. So we, again, are 2/3 of the way through, but this does accompany for all of our summer payrolls are in there, because again, it's just a journal entry to this past fiscal year too as well. So, so expenditures are looking very, very good. Benefits too, we're right on track to hit all of those obligations too as well.
And benefits, we know for this next year what our fixed costs are.
Correct.
When do we pick up our next negotiation for benefits?
January 1st, so it'll be in the fall.
Okay.
It'll be in the fall, yep. So we'll talk about that in our preliminary budget, about what that's gonna be
great.
looking like
Okay.
as well, because those are some fixed costs that we know, and the nice part is we do have our ceiling for the max amount that our healthcare can go up from that standpoint too as well. So when we do take a look at revenues, again, right now we are anticipating, approximately $200,000 less in budgeted expenditures. So at the end of the year, so it's again, we'll continue to monitor that as we go through April and May. And as we know, like all businesses, some of our bills are lagging a little bit, but I don't want to call it a surplus, but any budget dollars that are not utilized, again, we'll talk about it in a little bit, but the board can decide that, again, we have removed some facility projects, but any surplus this year, we can decide, again, we'll do the analysis whether we put it into Fund 46 and then spend it through some of those. But any of our surplus from the 23-24, I would recommend that we just apply towards our facility projects that we are looking to do this summer and into next school year too as well. So, so from an expenditure standpoint, things are looking very, very good from that standpoint. So again, expecting a surplus. Again, it's good when you have additional revenues and less expenditures. Obviously, that creates a good budget situation.
So the new state money,
Yep.
raising the ceiling, comes in July 1st, but not until October?
July 1st it's part of our revenue limit,
Right.
so it's part of our fiscal planning, which again, we'll talk about that in a second. So again, that's $325 onto the low revenue limit, correct.
Do you see any backlash from Assembly or Senate?
No, that's done. The $325 for this upcoming year is done. There's no conversation about that. the conversation will be for the 25-27 biennial budget, where Governor Evers put in the 325 for the next 400 years. That I'm sure will be revisited as well. So, and we'll talk about some of that a little bit too as we look to plan for even the future as we take a look at that. A second there, if there's any questions at all. But again, when we take a look at historical trends as well as some detailed analysis, everything's looking really, really good from the budget and expenditure side.
We always budget for the curriculum cycle, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Do we ever not buy a new curriculum when we go through the curriculum cycle?
In my time, no. In my time, no. I shouldn't say that. When we did K-5 science, our FOSS kits from a K-5 level, we just updated them. So it was a brand new curriculum, but it was the same curriculum. That would be my only experience with, and you went from 2.0 to 3.0
Okay.
from that standpoint too. But this year's budget does have a significant financial implication for our new literacy budget. Correct, yeah. Because, again, we'll just kind of, should we transition into that?
Yeah, let's do
We'll
that.
transition into that. Because as we take a look at our current reality, actually, let's just kind of walk through our preliminary budget here just a little bit too. And again, this is the first time you guys are seeing it. It's a little bit, again, we can continue to talk about it. Obviously, it'll be a first look for the board. But the nice part about this and our current reality for the budget is we do know what it's going to be, a $325 increase. That's the opportunity the board has to do that. Just like when it went from 10,000 to 11,000, there is no new state money. So the increase 325 is going on to the levy. So that is not being offset. Dean, when you asked about is there any conversations, I know there still is a push to try to get some additional funding, but that would not be on the revenue standpoint. That would be a per pupil allocation for, it could be for either mental health, kind of from the Get Kids Start Ahead grant, or in some sort of other opportunity that the governor would be able to put into place. So, but again, that would be off the revenue limit, and it would be one-time dollars as well.
And then the chatter's been in that, so the surpluses should be going back to some of the, going back to school.
Should be going back to some of the schools, and again, that surplus, again, that's why if it does go back to the schools, they're talking about one-time money.
Yeah.
From that standpoint too. So, and again, one-time money, we'll take it. But the nice part is our current reality is showing, at least we can understand and predict what's going on. So, the big thing is we will present to the board a preliminary budget in May. Again, we will then approve it in June so that we can start to spend. A couple big factors, obviously, when we start to approve a budget, we know none of the factors, right? July 1st is when the state gives us equalization aid, or basically what the state is predicting to pay, what part of the bill they're going to pay. As we know, we continue to get a decrease in that state aid equalization. We are anticipating, this budget does anticipate another $120,000 of reduction from last year to this year. Again, I'd rather be conservative with that. Last year we didn't see that, and again, we'll talk about what all goes into that in a second. But July 1st is when we get our state aid estimates, which basically helps drive the levy. Then September, we'll know a little bit more as we take a look at our annual meeting. Again, we'll refine things. We'll have, at least, we won't have our third Friday count, but we'll have our first Friday, our first day of school by then, and we can adjust as needed, because the big drivers are enrollment, obviously, is your number one, and that impacts the 3-year rolling average. And then you have your property values, and then you get your final state aid, which ultimately lands us in October, where we then will set the levy and finalize the budget for this upcoming school year. So, budget factors, as we take a look at it. Again, we've talked about the $325 per pupil increase. Again, that is additional monies that, again, go on to the levy from that standpoint. We do know our increased operating costs, salaries. We've settled with pretty much everybody, an average approximately 4.66% overall. Again, that does highlight a 3% salary hourly increase plus a $1,000 retention bonus for our staff. We know what our health insurance factor is. Now, you'll see a 12.5%, Rebecca. That is because we moved our insurances to go from January to December,
So we moved on to,
a calendar
Annual.
year, yep, a calendar year, and that lines up with our FSAs and stuff like that
Right.
too as well. So we have a max cap of 25%, but for this upcoming budget, we would be looking at the increase from January 1 to June 30th. So we know that fixed cost as we're moving forward there too as well. We did get a transportation increase of 3.5%. Again, that just comes off of our contract. Again, from their CPIs and stuff like that.
is that annual?
That's an annual, correct.
So
Yep.
it's pretty much 3.5 every year or some?
Some years, again, a year ago, it was a little bit higher because we had to increase wages. So it was right around a 5.5% when we took a look at it and said, hey, we need to bump up. And obviously, last year's CPI was a lot higher as we move into that too as well. So, but this year, again, with that bump, again, we anticipate it's very competitive and stuff like that as well.
So, am I wrong? They can increase it if fuel prices go up? Are they locking in fuel prices?
Fuel prices, we pay directly, it's not part of our contract. So, it has, fuel prices have nothing to do with the contract.
Okay, so we could have more, if fuel prices go up, we could have more
Correct,
expensive.
correct.
Okay.
We are
They
gonna
get fuel
keep,
prices, right?
we are gonna keep our fuel prices the way they are right now. Because right now, where we have them set, again, I can get you a dollar figure, or a gallon, a per gallon dollar figure. But again, our prediction has been, it's been a lot lower this year than it has in the past. So when we take a look at and talk to Dousman, they say, hey, fuel's gonna be what it is, they feel right now, and what we budgeted for a year ago is confident there too as well. But good catch, we pay fuel directly, not part of the contract. Again, unknown enrollment. Obviously, we're a growing school district. Again, we don't know what our open enrollment resident figures are as we go in here. We are anticipating no differences in open enrollment. We're gonna remain the same. And our enrollment figures, we are budgeting about 10 new students to be added from this year to next year. Now, whether that's students or resident, again, this goes by residents. So whether they attend or not, but again, 10 new residents.
What's the average
We'll get into that. Oh, what's our average
for
been?
new students
For new students, right around 45
per year?
per year. Again, across K through 8, we've averaged
So we're
about for the last several
10
years.
across.
Again, we want to be conservative with that. Again, I don't, because again, the more students you put in there, the more revenue you get. And I don't want to underpromise and overdeliver on that. So, again, that's why very conservatively right now, as new enrollments come in, we will continue to take a look at that as well. So, and then the big budget factor, again, we talked about this kind of from a curriculum standpoint, loss of all ESSER $3 and EBIS, which is evidence-based instructional strategies. So, and to get kids start ahead. So there is a budget deficit of about $350,000 from what was a year ago. So that is, again, at least it's a known factor, and we are putting that all into play as our budget planning moving forward as well. So, speaking of curriculum, again, we'll move to the right here. Anticipated curriculum and grounds projects this year. It's a really nice facility projects, really kind of low-key, more big stuff than it is little stuff like we've done in the past. But from a curriculum cycle, the big deal this year is the K-5 English Language Arts adoption. Okay, Act 20 obviously drives K through 5, or K through 3, I should say. And again, you will continue to hear more and more about that. And Maria does anticipate giving a presentation to the board coming up here in a couple weeks about what our preliminary findings are and what our preliminary recommendations are. I will tell you, again, in the newspapers, you will hear that the state finance, the Joint Finance Committee has released only 3 approved curriculums to move into what they would say the $50 million bucket. DPI gave them a list of, I want to say 20 plus. They broke it down to 3, and according to the language in the legislation, if you choose one of those 3, you have access to a $50 million bucket. We are not choosing one of those 3. Okay. Again, you will hear those details. We don't feel that those are the right fit here, and it's not right for our school district. So we are budgeting to adopt a new K through 5 without any state assistance. from that standpoint. Now, you'll hear about the universal screener. The state already reimbursed us for our universal screener K through 2. So it's gonna be a wash. And again, they may be telling us to change our universal screeners. There will not be any new additional cost for that though, because again, that is a mandate that we have to do, from what I understand.
Does the state say there's one universal screener, or did they say you could choose?
One universal screener. They're gonna tell us which one to use.
Universal screener.
They want it to be universal, so. So that's kind of, when we take a look at the curriculum cycle, that is our big lift this year. A year ago was mathematics, this year is K through 5 ELA. I should say last year was 6 through 8 ELA, so that's why. And we knew that Act 20 was coming, and there's only so much that our primary staff can handle too as well. You don't want to do math and ELA adoption the same year. That would be very, very difficult. The board did approve 4 rooftop units. We have those ordered already and to set to be delivered in July, which we'll be putting those up on our roofs. We have
This is the crane thing?
the crane thing, you got it, yep, the $85,000 purchase for that. Bathroom partitions, again, hopefully we'll be able to maybe even do that. I do have all the quotes collected for that. They did come in under $10,000, so which is really positive there. Technology enhancements to Little Theater. So that's coming in. Again, Jim will be presenting some bids in May for that.
We approved a bid on that already, didn't we?
No.
What was the last thing we did?
Technology was
showing us?
Wi-Fi hotspots.
Oh.
And we did kind of
There was a
preview.
mic in that, what was that for? It was a microphone, so that's what
I
I thought
think
was the Little Theater.
we told you, I think when we were prepping the 24-25 budget, we did showcase
about
it
what's
as that.
Okay.
Correct, yep. So new floor scrubber, possible trade-in purchase of Bobcat, we'll take a look at that, if in fact we feel we need to do that. But again, all of these would be through Fund 41, Fund 46, or Fund Balance. And then last week, intermediate school boiler replacement. We did have 4 contractors come through, and those bids are due, I do believe, in about 10 days. So we'll see what that is like, and we'll see what we're gonna do with that. So that's it for anticipated buildings and
Boilers
grounds.
on it's about time we should do it, or do we know that we have to do this?
No, so what the boiler situation is, we are looking to replace the 1968 or 69 Kiwani boiler. Now, that is our 3rd stage boiler. We have 3 boilers, okay? So we have our main boiler, which is from 2013, 2014. We have our secondary boiler. If that one doesn't work or can't keep up, then our secondary boiler kicks in.
Okay.
And that one's from 2008. And then our 3rd, an emergency boiler, is from 1968-69. What we are looking to do is replace and remove the 68-69 Kiwani boiler, replace it with a high efficiency new boiler, which then becomes our number 1.
So it becomes our primary.
So for our primary, we are working with Focus on Energy as well. So again, we're in the, I don't want to say preliminary, we're in the middle of that to determine, but again, we would be looking for a brand new efficiency and upgrade there. The reason why the intermediate school boiler, obviously the entire system runs more on a boiler system, but there is a loop too that keeps in the 75 section. Again, the construction of that was to make sure they couldn't go down far enough for secure footings. So to help stop the frost from heaving the building, we put a hot water loop in the floor. Again, this is 1975 stuff, but again, we're kind of at the mercy of 1975 decisions right now. But again, just looking to get a new high efficiency boiler to help heat that facility. So do we absolutely have to do this? No. The good news is all 3 of them are well maintained, and we continue to upgrade those, but again, just looking to see, and again, we'll do some ROI on it and stuff like that too as well. So again, that's why it's still in the middle phases of gathering what it might be there too as well. Okay. All right, then we talk to our revenue limit. So what we're looking at here, again, revenue limit is a 3-year rolling average. And again, as you're increasing enrollment, your last year falls off, which is a little year, gets replaced with the new year. So we are looking at a 3-year rolling average to increase from 837 to about 866. Okay, so again, that's the growth from our current reality and replacing a lower number. So that's our 3-year rolling average from that standpoint. So, and again, the revenue limit tells us how much we can spend in Fund 10. Okay, and that is a combination of state equalization aid and taxpayer dollars. Okay, it does not include any reimbursements we get from Fund 27 or any of the federal or state grants that we get.
And our reimbursement for special ed went up a little, just
It's
a little bit.
33%, right, it went up 3%, that's it. Again, if we wanted to talk about school finance, what everybody's asking for is an increase to special education reimbursement, because that just is a kick to Fund 10 then. Anything just gets shifted there too as well. So our estimated Fund 10 revenue limit is $10,185,376. All right, so let's talk a little bit about what it looks like on each side of the house there, the state side and the property tax side. So we know what the state aid is, we're gonna get an estimate, but ultimately, as your property values increase, we've talked about this before, as your property values increase, the state says, oh, your property taxpayers can pay more of the bill. And that is happening again. So as you notice, again, the property values, it's from January 1st to December 31st, 2023 is what they utilize that. Again, we find out what that increase is a little bit later in the year in October. But we do know last year we raised, close to 12%. This year I'm anticipating at least 10% increase as we take a look at what the state equalization aid is there too as well. A year ago, we were just under $4 million for state equalization aid. We are estimating a decrease of about $122,000 for that as well. So we are estimating $3.8 million. Where did that come from? Just took a look at the last several years and we've been dropping about $122,000 each year. So obviously, if that drops even further, and we won't know until July 1st as an estimate, more of it then goes back onto the taxpayers from that standpoint too. So again, if we know what our revenue limit is, we've got 3.8 from the state equalization aid, and then we've got the 6.253 coming back into our property tax. I will tell you too, the estimated equalization aid too is there is an increase, and they are talking about an increase to the voucher program. Per student on the voucher program. Again, it doesn't come out of our Fund 10, it just gets added to the tax levy, and that's why we call it the voucher tax from that standpoint too. So state equalization aid, we do anticipate dropping again for the 4th or 5th straight year.
This is the voucher that went up again this last.
It went up again this past year, correct. Yep, that was the negotiation between Governor Evers and the Republicans. So then we take a look at, okay, so we know we need about $6.3 million from the tax levy. Our estimates here. So state has raised the 325 student if it's desired. It is not required. Again, that's what I just want to be transparent there. It is not, the board does not have to act on that 325. Our budget is built around acting on the 325. So again, we are high per pupil property value, which means lower state aid. We are anticipating a property value of a 10% increase. Again, early estimates were right around 8 to 9. Again, we'll estimate 10. So the estimated early mill rate is 3.6%, or I'm sorry, $3.60. This does represent approximately a 14% increase to the tax levy. A year ago, it was about a 30% increase to the tax levy. The reason for that is remember we went from 10,000 to 11,000, so that's a really big jump, all onto the property taxpayers. This year, the 325 plus the voucher, plus the increased enrollment, the increase in property value, we are anticipating across the board about a 15% increase on property taxes. Early estimates. Now, we all know that each municipality is not created equally. Last year, some saw a 32%, some saw a 15%. Again, it all depends on which municipality you're in. And again, I do have those figures too as well.
So the only way we can lower taxes or, don't want to say, or the only way we can control how much we send to the taxpayers is by not spending to the max.
Yeah.
Under levy, correct.
And if there's a referendum going to Arrowhead, most people just look at the bottom line of their taxes, they don't look how it's broken out per municipality that's drawing from there. So, we'll be the first ones to be yelled at if it goes up considerably.
We will,
So it's been-
but also, if we don't, we can't be competitive.
No, no, if we don't, we're gonna end, and again, I don't wanna call out any, if we don't, we're gonna end up lowering down our fund balances, and we're gonna be not being able to take care of our buildings, take care of our people. Reoccurring costs need to be part of our Fund 10 expenditures, so, again, we're an increasing enrollment district. It's the needs of students, but the needs of staff, the needs of professional development curriculum. Again, we're deciding that we're gonna do what's right for our students instead of chase the dollar as it relates to a curriculum purchase too as well, so.
Well, if it makes you feel better, they're not gonna blame the board. Somebody in the community told Dan that their taxes went up because I made the board take out loans. I was like, yeah, well, you can't do that too.
No, good try, I guess, but no, it's unfortunately,
Hey, you don't
no.
have that kind of power, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, so again, we'll dig into preliminary estimates and preliminary expenditures on revenues and expenses. But again, like always, we are looking at right around 2/3 of our budget going to salaries and benefits. It's just the way all school district budgets go. So again, these charts and graphs are not accurate there as well. But when I do take a look at our current, basically, what is the state of the budget? Fund 10 does show a balanced budget. Right now I've got it to about $14,000, which is, we'll continue to take a look at that. Again, we have pulled out all of our big projects that were in the budget a year ago. When I say dollars, it's about $320,000. We take a look at the asphalt project as well as the primary school remodel. Last year, we were able to put those and put them all into our Fund 10 budget. In order to balance, like we've talked about, we've had an increase in salaries and benefits. We lost $350,000 worth of grants, okay? We have reduced approximately 2.6 FTE across the entire district as well. So we've taken a look at our staffing plans as we're moving forward there. The big part is those facility projects are not in. I will tell you, our reoccurring maintenance is. Okay, so if something, whatever we do every year, whether it's rooftop maintenance, it's, roof inspections, whatever it is, we are keeping those all in and making sure that reoccurring maintenance is budgeted through Fund 10. Last year, we were given that gift of $1,000. We were able to do some really big maintenance facility projects within Fund 10. Now, I also talked about earlier, any excess money from the 23-24, I would recommend the board, we earmark that for the facility projects that we would like to do for the 24-25 school year.
And one thing, by being proactive on our maintenance, we don't get any surprises, which sometimes those surprises can take a district and put them in a big hole.
Yep. Yep, so, again, had another conversation with our roof contractor who goes through and says, Ron, everything's looking, it's just all that preventative stuff. We do know that things come up, whether it's from a built-up roof, whether it's a crack somewhere, and all of a sudden we got water flowing, but again, those are all things that we take care of in-house then, and again, that would be stuff that we'd be able to look ahead, again, just trying to be proactive as much as possible. Finally, what I wanted to highlight is just kind of our current fund balance situation. Again, that graph is not accurate, but the numbers above are from our preliminary estimates. Again, our audited fund balance a year ago was approximately 37% of our budget, or 3.9, just under 3.9. And our Fund 4146, which are facility-only funds, are just under 1.4%. So we are just under 50% when you take a look at opportunities for those surprise costs, if in fact they do happen to pop up. we are in really, really good fiscal shape, making sure that we're taking care of business there too as well. So, again, we do feel that this budget does take care of our staff. We do have an agreed upon with our teachers and things like that. So we're excited to present this budget as a balanced budget minus those main facilities. But again, we feel that we may have the opportunity to sneak some of those in too as well, depending on how enrollment looks and stuff like that as we move forward.
So if we need to act on anything in the facilities in the 3 facility plans that we talked about last time.
Yep.
In the next few years, how much of that can we get from what we already have? How much of our costs can we get?
100%.
Okay, so we.
I mean, if you
I
told us
say-
to start to dig, and we need to
Yep.
start that process, in theory,
Even
again, it's
on the budget.
approximately at $2.1 million.
Yeah.
Now, it would drag us down enough that we'd really have to do a cash flow analysis, whether we needed to short-term borrow, because right now our low point a year ago was, or this past fiscal year is 1.3 million. Again, the ebbs and flows of that, but again, we would be able to act on anything we needed to within our current fiscal situation, absolutely. So that's kind of the big picture that would be presented here coming up in May. Again, the great part about it is we know what we're dealing with. Outside of some unknown factors, but we can start to predict as much as we can. We continue to monitor new student growth, and away we go.
So is May when we would act on the full tax levy for 325?
No.
That doesn't come out.
Well,
Is that we discussed though, is that part of the community discussion in October or September? What is that?
a couple things that go into that. So, first of all, it's an opportunity for the board to tell me and our planning, our administrative team, to say, what are we gonna plan on doing? So that's why we're bringing this to the board and as a first read in May and then a finalization in June. The board, first of all, the big question the board needs to do is should we plan for the full levy limit? Again, I'm recommending that we do. If the board is saying no to that, we would like to know sooner than later. Say it's 300,000, if it's 200, it's whatever it is, because then we need to start making some different fiscal plans. And then we'll be like, okay, what do you want to take out? What do you want to draw down? Things like that. The community has an opportunity to do that. I will hold a special, and again, I'm going to communicate, because again, after the tax bills came out a year ago, I'm going to communicate with the town of Lisbon, the village of Lisbon,
All 5 of them are.
town, all of them, and communicate with the municipalities and invite them to a community, not our community forum, but something specific just for budget. Again, I'll push that out to our families too as well, because we are anticipating an increase in taxes. Just so they understand the situation that we're in, and again, the 12 to 13 people that I did talk to understood, whether they like it or not, but at least they can understand the situation that we're in. There are a lot of factors. You talked about Arrowhead possibly going to referendum. That impacts one
They're
piece
gonna
of
go to
it.
referendum.
They're going to referendum, yeah, more than likely. But again, that's where we just like, hey folks, this is what our current reality is and what we're doing to control costs, right? And again, just kind of showcasing to those people who may not be as familiar with it. So step one is the board to approve a preliminary budget. And we would like them to tell us what direction they would like to go. Then in September, we will present a more updated budget with more guesses, because again, we won't know any of our final factors. Enrollment, we'll know what our enrollment is, but we won't know 2 other key pieces. And then October, the annual meeting is a recommendation to the board from the community. The board then acts in October on what they feel is right as the majority of the board. The only piece that will have to be decided, again, that's just from some budget numbers, is Fund 41. The only time Fund 41 is a facility only, the only opportunity the district has to put money into Fund 41 is at the annual meeting. Right now, this preliminary budget, again, just like a year ago, didn't have any Fund 41 dollars. Last year, when we took a look at where we're at, hey, we put 50,000 in a year ago. So that's the only thing that truly gets decided at there from a budget standpoint, as well as board salaries. So, all right, so we'll be presenting this in May, and again, if there's any questions or anything, again, it'll be a first read for the entire board and our community, just to kind of get this, but again, I wanted to present everything, because a year ago, we didn't expect a 30% increase to the levy, given all the factors that we were given. Now we can anticipate a little bit better. Okay. So that should do it for our finance committee meeting.
All right.
All right.